There's something that you're avoiding right now. What you're avoiding right now, the difficult task, the difficult conversation, that difficult business move. Just there's something right now that you know that you want to do, you need to do. It's in front of you, but it just seems so difficult. And you think that it's hard because of the task itself. But what if I told you that's a lie? What if I told you it's a lie that you can't continue to afford to buy? And it's hard because you're looking at it through an old foggy lens. You know, I always like to say you don't need a new life, you just need a new lens. And whatever it is that you're going through right now or thinking about pushing yourself through, if you change your relationship with difficult, you will change your life. So in this video, I'm going to actually teach you the 4-step framework to change your whole situation and your relationship with difficult and become the person that you were always meant to be. You know, someone in my life always told me this, that you don't lack access to anything. You just lack awareness of the access that you already have. And by the end of this video, I'm going to show you that everything that you need, you already have. And let's get to it, y'all. Welcome to the Perspective Pause. And what I'd like to do before we get into the value of this video is that 33% of people that watch these videos, the data shows, is that you haven't subscribed to the channel yet. Well, if I'm adding any value to your life and you feel like this has done anything for you at all, please subscribe to the channel. Please comment your takeaways on these videos so that way I know exactly if it is adding value, as well as it will be able to boost the algorithm so more people can see these videos. You know, I don't charge for any of this stuff. I don't have any offers for anything at the end of these videos. I solely do these videos for 2 different reasons, right? Number one is really just because I know that tomorrow's not promised, and I want to be able to showcase my mindset and awareness for my next generation to come. And the other piece of it is knowing that these are things that I've gone through, I've overcome through experience, through education, through mentors, and different strategies that I want to share because there's somebody right now that's going through this very thing, and they may not get exactly what they need unless we make this content, unless we share this also. So anyway, if you're getting any value from these videos, please go ahead and share this. If you're watching this live right now, drop some rockets in the chat so I know you're here with me. And let's get into it, y'all. So what I'd like to say is there's a framework to everything, right? There's a system to everything. There's principles that we can learn that will allow us to be able to lean on when things are not telling us the truth. What are you talking about, Chesco? What do you mean? Well, I'm glad that you asked. We tell ourselves lies all the time, and we have to trick our brain into building a new relationship with difficult. We need to trick our brain to do difficult things. And our mind and our brain are 2 different things. I don't know if you've ever thought about this, right? We have a brain, it's in our head, it's physical, it's there, right? But we also have our mind. We have our intuition. We have our thoughts. We have the things that are just rolling around all of the time. And in the midst of all of that are going to be a few different things, right? We're going to think about how difficult something is going to be when we start doing it. We're going to think about how difficult something is going to be in the process of doing it. And sometimes we'll even think about the outcome of what we're going to be doing and picture the outcome that we don't even want. Now, why would we do that? Because too many times do we assign a level of difficulty with something that we've never done before. And how can we assign a level of difficulty with something that we've never done before if we've never done it before? So let's just get into the framework, right? I'd like to just get into this video head on. And this framework is called the home framework. So you're going to hear me say probably often through this video, go home. Go home. And what does go home mean? Go home means to attach yourself to the truth. And what is the truth? The Word of God, right? So go home. Go back to the Word of God. because that's what's going to give you everything that you need. You know, there's a lot of people out here that are influencers, and a lot of people claim to be leaders. You have to be very careful who's leading you right now. So today, who's going to be leading us? Well, what's going to be leading us? Well, the only thing that's going to be leading us is the Word of God. Okay? So we'll start with this framework. It's called the home framework. Go home, right? Go home. So when I say go home, you already understand what I'm saying. What, you know what? Before I get into that, can I just like say that I don't really make these videos with the sense of saying these are things that I've come up with, right? The home framework may be something that I've actually came up with from a series of events that I've gone through to overcome these things and build a new relationship with difficult. But study shows that these things are actually a real thing. You know, I don't know if you know who Matthew Lieberman is, but he has a podcast, and he leads a team over at UCLA. But there was a study called the psychological response to emotional labeling, right? And the data was that Lieberman's team, they did this research, and they proved that effective labeling, simply naming a difficult emotion, decreases activity in the amygdala. I can't say this word. In the amygdala, right? And increases activity in the prefrontal cortex. Right? So basically by simply naming a difficult emotion, by labeling it, right? So whatever, you know, they say words matter. And someone in my life used to tell me all the time, not only do words matter, but words are matter. And he went on as far as to say that in the Hebrew dictionary, there's a word called debar. And that word, when you look up the definition for it, it's speak and things. So the actual word itself is stating that words are matter, right? The definition is stating that words are matter. So I thought that was pretty cool. So when we think about it, whatever we label is what we start to believe. So if we say something's going to be difficult, then that's the label that we're putting on it. So we're creating a belief, right? And by naming what it is that we're going through difficult, well, then we actually move the blood flow from panic to problem solving. So it's like when you label the pain, you disable the panic. Naming the difficult, it physically shifts the blood flow from fear to focus. So we have to stop letting an unnamed ghost run our life. We pretty much got to call it out and take the steering wheel back, because if we've never done something before, we can't really label it, right? So anyway, what do I mean by that? Well, this is the H in the home framework. H stands for head. All right. I try to make this so simple so people can really remember these things, right? So the H stands for head. And what are we saying when we talk about head? We're talking about getting out of our head. And how do we get out of our head? Well, I'm glad that you asked. Well, we have to find our fingers and find our toes. Okay. Well, what does that mean, to find your fingers and find your toes? Well, I'm glad that you asked. So what we need to do is we have to start asking ourselves, well, we don't get there yet. Let's get out of our head, right? Finding our toes, finding our fingers and finding our toes. It allows us to, and what this is something, when I say find your fingers, find your toes, it's like snap your fingers and wiggle your toes. Like do whatever it takes to get out of your head and be present, right? Because when you become present, you will get out of your head. Tony Robbins always says, if you're in your head, you're dead, right? And so we have to get out of our head to deal what's inside of it. We can't deal with what's going on inside of our head until we step away from it. So how do we do that? We have to be present. We have to be present. We have to be here right now. We have to understand that we can't accomplish anything when you're inside of everything. You can't accomplish everything when you're inside of anything. Like you have to step away from what it is that you're actually involved in order for you to start to dissect it. So we have to get out of our head. So in order for us to change our relationship with difficult, the first step that we have to do is get completely out of our head. Well, how do you do that? Well, everybody does it differently. Some people, well, what do I do? I don't care what some people do. Let's say, what do I do, right? Well, what I will normally do is literally, I will start snapping my fingers and I'll start wiggling my toes. Now, granted, this isn't something that I was just born with. It's a process that I had to put myself through when I went through some of my toughest times. I used to have a really rough day, let's say when everything was falling apart. I won't get into too deep the detail of that, but I mean, I was just at my lowest point and I attempted to commit suicide. The power was off. I had no money, going through a divorce, two daughters, a single dad. It was just very, very difficult for me in that time, right? And through that time frame, I created a little system and it was called 2 minutes to win it, right? And like throughout the most of my day, I was constantly focused on the problem. And I was just in my head all day. I was thinking about how bad things are, how bad things are going to be, how long I'm going to stay in this certain situation. And I kept thinking about the difficult thing that I needed to do, which was pretty much kind of snap out of it and take action. Snap out of it and go forth with the things that were on my mind that I felt like I was called to do. I felt like God was calling me to do certain things. And I just couldn't take those steps. Well, the real reason was because I was in my head most of the time. I was literally just sitting there ruminating, thinking about what was going to go wrong, thinking about, how things would fall apart if I just attempted to go in this direction. And so what was interesting is that when I started to read a lot of books about just mindfulness and personal development, I started to realize that a lot of the ways that I was going to overcome my situation was to kind of take a look in the mirror and know that I was the problem and I was also the solution. So what I mean by that is that I had everything that I needed in order for me to get out of my head. I just needed to start creating a new habit. So what did I do? Well, I would have alarms set on my phone, right? I would set an alarm on my phone, 111, as it is in heaven. I would write down what I'm grateful for every single day at that time. In the morning, I had a routine. I put myself in a position to where I would write down exactly what I was grateful for or celebrating wins from the night before. I had my alarm set for multiple times of the day, a night routine. I had to do whatever I had to do to hold myself accountable, right? I couldn't afford a mentor at the time, but I had to hold myself accountable. So I would set my alarm on certain times of the day to cause myself to start realizing I needed to get out of my head. So I started practicing that, right? Because it's very difficult in the moment when we're in the heat of the moment or of something and to have some emotional regulation because we have all this resistance that's popping up in those moments. So anyway, this is what I did. I told myself I need to find my fingers and find my toes. And that, like, just some people will put their hand on their stomach and they'll breathe, they'll meditate and do things like that. For me, that's what I did. I would find my fingers, find my toes. It got me out of my head. So it allowed me to then start writing down things, and it also allowed me to stop overthinking. Because it's good to think, right? Thinking is good as long as you know when to stop doing it, right? Thinking is good as long as when you know when to stop doing it. And so basically, after you get out of your head, right? If meditate, see, the thing is like, I want to really focus on this area because it's the most important. It's the most critical. Because if you can't find a way and a habit that's going to help you when you have a certain feeling arise, you don't know how to address that feeling or address that emotion, then you're going to be stuck. You're just going to be stuck. And like what it is that's on your mind that you're wanting to get accomplished isn't going to go away. You're just going to keep using this bad operating system to be able to continue to keep you paralyzed. And what I want to do with this framework is help you uninstall this old operating system and reinstall this new one, because you can't start doing something without getting rid of something, right? It's almost like our mind and our brain has a certain amount of hard drive. And we have to get rid of some of the things that we've been doing in order for us to actually become something greater. So with that being said, is that once we get out of our head, right, we go for a walk, go to the gym, do something that you don't normally do. That's what I would say. Do something that you wouldn't normally do. And now this isn't exactly the secret sauce to building a different relationship with difficult, but it is the secret sauce to start tricking your brain on how to do difficult things, because you have to take control of your brain or else your brain's going to take control of you. And too many of us will say, yeah, I just don't have time for that. Well, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. Some of us will say, I don't have time for that. And some of us will say, I will make time for that. So if you want to make a different life, then you're going to have to make time to learn how to become present. So you may have to do it before the situation arises, right? You can't win the war if you haven't been preparing for the war, right? You can't overcome temptation without building a relationship with Jesus first, right? You're just not that strong. You have to have something to ground yourself and have a foundation. So this part is really the foundation, is learning how to stop, learning how to pause, right? If any part of this video is the perspective pause today, it would be this first step, which would be learning how to pause, learning how to take a moment and really understand that you got to step away from what it is that you're looking at in order to see it differently. Like, too many of us will actually continue to do something that's not working and think that if we do more of what's not working, that things will start working. But that doesn't happen like that. Like, there's people that say, I got this, I know what I'm doing, but then they're still miserable. It's like, if you're wanting to overcome something, then you need to be able to say, you know what, I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to do something different. Anyway, well, you probably already know that. So let's get into the O. The O is turning obstacles into opportunities. And you probably heard this a million times, but this is the point where we start doing the work. We can no longer react. We need to reframe. And reframing comes from the preparation part of saying, hey, I'm going to practice mindfulness. Then I'm also going to start practicing reframing. And what is reframing? Reframing is saying, let me give a different definition. Let me set up this situation with a new definition. Well, how do you do that, Chesco? Well, I'm glad that you asked. Better questions. Better questions. You're most likely asking yourself questions. We have, I don't know, it's thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of thoughts a day. And a lot of those are on repeat from yesterday. We're on autopilot, right? But until we actually have an interruption, that we create a pattern interrupt and start asking ourselves better questions, we're not going to get better answers. And if we can't get better answers, then we're not going to get better thoughts. And we can't get better thoughts, we're not going to have better feelings. And if we can't have better feelings, then we're not going to have better actions, and we're not going to have better habits, and we're not going to have a better life. So it all starts with, people say it starts with your thoughts. Yes, but your thoughts are going to be created based on the questions that you ask yourself. What are those questions? I'm sure you'd love to know. Well, those questions are things like, before I tell you what questions to ask, what questions are you already asking? What questions are you already asking yourself? Are you asking yourselves questions like, what if it doesn't work? Are you asking yourselves questions like, when I start doing this, am I going to end up failing? How stupid will I look when I actually do this thing? How hard will this conversation be when I start opening my mouth with this person? Right? Like, are you already assigning a level of difficulty what it is that you haven't done yet? Well, that's not even fair. That's not even fair. Because if you really think about it, right? If you ask yourself, let's look at it like this, right? Like I'm in sales. We're all in sales. You had to sell yourself to even get on this video. I sold you to get here, right? So no, but seriously, we're all in sales, right? Everything we do when we open up our mouth, we're selling everything. We're selling our time to see if people want to, pay for things with their time or their presence. Everything is sales, right? When you think about sales, I always like to always ask people this reframing question, right? Like if somebody's like, well, I don't know if this is going to work. So I have to think about it, or I don't know if I can afford this. So I may have to just take some time. There's so many different types of objections that people can get in sales. And I'm not trying to go into some sales training, but I want to help you reframe something, right? Is that a lot of people will say, this costs me too much right now, right? And your new life will actually cost you your old one. You've probably heard that before, right? So the price of change has a price tag. You can have anything you want in life as long as you're willing to pay the price. But what I'm saying to that is like, what is more expensive? What is more expensive? Is it the solution, or is it holding on to the problem? What's more expensive? What's costing you more? A lot of things that we do is costing us time, right? Indecision costs us everything. And the conversation and the questions that we ask ourselves will put us either in two places: indecision or decision, right? And decision is cool because you have something where you're cutting off all the options to get to your goal. But if you don't have a decision, you have an incision. What's an incision, Chesco? Well, it means that you're cutting yourself off from everything in all of your goals. You're cutting into yourself. And so when we ask ourselves questions, am I making a decision or am I making an incision? Am I willing to sacrifice and invest into the solution, or am I willing to hold on to the problem? Those are just some questions, right? The most effective question that you can ask yourself right now is that, why is this a good thing? Why is what I'm about to go through right now a good thing? Not thinking about the situation, but thinking about what will be on the other side of the situation. Safe enough, right? To say that, like don't think about how difficult the conversation is. Think about how amazing the result will be on the other side of the conversation. Too many of us think about how bad it's going to be on the other side of the conversation. We think about the pain that the conversation is going to take. We think that the pain of making this decision of letting go of things is going to be difficult. But what if you thought about the things that you're going to gain? You know, I think that God's not going to allow us to open and close the doors that we pray for him to open and close in our lives until we actually let go of the door handle. And if we're holding on to the door handle, that's pretty much saying that we're in indecision. We're living in a place of indecision. So now an indecision is similar to an incision. You're cutting yourself off from going anywhere. Anyway, this is all just words and stuff, so it's not even that deep. What I want to say is this, right? Ask yourself a question right now. What is something right now that you're faced with that you're labeling as difficult? What is something that you are labeling as difficult right now? Is it something you need to be more disciplined with? Is it something that you feel like you got to address that you haven't addressed, that you're wanting to address? What is it, right? Now think about, what is the reason why you're waiting? What is the reason why you're holding off? I mean, why are you saying that this is going to be difficult or this is hard? Because I'll say this, right? What's hard? What's difficult? You know what? What is difficult? Let's look up the definition of difficult real quick, right? Let's do that. You know what? Let's look up the definition of difficult. Is that all right with y'all? If you're getting any value from this video today, drop some rockets in the chat. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. And we're about to get into it here. I'm going to go over something in a minute that's going to blow your mind. And so if we look at the definition of difficult, what is it? Okay. The definition of difficult, according to Google Gemini, is needing much effort or skill to accomplish, deal with, or understand. Also categorized by or causing hardships or problems. And then it says of a person, maybe not easy to please or to satisfy. Okay. So when we think about the word difficult, well, not when we think about it, when we look up the definition for the word difficult, it's stating that we need some, there's something that we're lacking in our mind, right? It's that we're needing a skill to accomplish. We're looking at what we don't have, but we don't actually learn or grow by thinking. Matter of fact, if we're overthinking, then we start sinking. And when you think about what will be the very thing that causes you to start asking yourself new questions, is when you start saying, what happens in the future? Not right now, not how do I feel right now. How you feel right now is probably going to trick you to be able to think that you need to stay still. Like your brain is going to trick you when you start to feel pain or say you're going to do something that you've never done before. It's going to attempt to trick you to think that that's danger, because your body starts getting the feelings start coming, right? And so in order to trick your brain, you have to actually look at yourself and your situation and then quickly get out of the present moment as fast as possible and start thinking. And you could do this by being present. I know it sounds crazy. You got to get present to not be present, but that's how we can open the real present. And the real present is putting ourselves in the future, is visualizing what it's going to look like when we're done dealing with this situation. Then dealing with this situation won't look so difficult. Because do you really want to sit here and continue to endure unnecessary pain and suffering? Or do you want to say, you know what? What will my life look like when I actually do this thing? That's a better question than saying, how will this feel when I do this thing? A better question would be, why is this important? I mean, that's the most powerful question you can ever really ask yourself, on top of why is this a good thing, is why is this important? You know, a lot of the things that seem difficult to us are really, once we become aware of something, we then know that our actions need to come in alignment with what we just became aware of. It's kind of like if you have a bad habit, right? If you got a bad habit doing something and you know that you shouldn't be doing that any longer, and then you finally realize what's going to happen if you keep doing it, you have to have a hard conversation with yourself and say, hey, if I keep doing this, I'm going to get that result. It's already been aware to me that that's the result that I'm going to get if I keep doing what I'm doing. And a lot of us, like I said earlier, end up in a situation where we will continue to try to trick ourselves that if we keep doing more of what's not working, things will start working. But that's not reality. So better questions. We got to ask better questions to ourselves. And like, before I go into the next letter of this framework, choose your hard, y'all. Like, choose your hard. What is hard? What is difficult right now? Is what you're dealing with difficult? Compare that. Now, they say comparison is the thief of joy. Whatever. I don't even care about that right now, because comparison can actually be a key component to helping you actually see how small you're thinking and how negative you're thinking. So kill all that comparison is the thief of joy stuff right now, because it's not a factor of us comparing ourselves to what somebody else has and making ourselves feel small. Why don't we compare ourselves to the situation that we're dealing with? Take a look at somebody else's situation and start to think that the situation that we have is actually not that deep. Comparison may not be the thief of joy. It may be a superpower in this moment. People just don't want to tell you that. They just want to tell you what's going to make you happy and make you feel good right now. I don't want to do that. I'm not here to try to help you feel good. I'm trying to help you get some results. So some of this stuff may sound boring. I'm not here to entertain you. I'm here to train you, right? And I want you to learn how to trick your brain so you can actually start building a different relationship with difficult. So I don't want you to feel good. I'm not trying to help you feel better. I want you to actually start to overcome what it is that you've been praying that you want to overcome. So stop saying comparison is the thief of joy. No, compare your life right now to what somebody else actually has so you can start to see. And I'm not talking about what they have and what you have. I'm talking about the problem. If we're going to talk about what they have, yeah, what are they carrying? Right? Because if you go open up, you check the news, it's going to be negative today, right? But you probably see a situation to where somebody's dealing with something way more difficult than what you're dealing with. Now, that may not be the thing you want to hear because like, oh, well, I'm going through so much right now. Well, that's a victim mindset. That's a fixed mindset. That's my circumstance defines me mindset. That's meaning that, I have a circumstance problem. No, you have a perspective problem. This is a moment where you need to have a perspective pause. You don't have a circumstance problem. You have a perspective problem. So when you look at what's difficult in your life, oh, man, I got to have that hard conversation today. Oh, man, I got to go ahead and go to the gym today. Oh, man, I got to try to drink this whole gallon of water today. Oh, man, I got to do my dishes today. I'm not going to say, oh, no, I get to. We're not even going to go there. What I'm going to say is that really that bad? Is that really that bad? Is that really that? Like, go to a nursing home and go see the people that don't have the choice. Like, you have a choice. Like, you could say, I could either drink this water today, this gallon of water, or I won't. I can go ahead and go to the gym today, or I won't. I can have this hard conversation with this person, or I won't. One day you will not get the choice to. That's going to be hard. That's going to be difficult. Right now, you're just on the internet. Look, I mean, can I give you guys like something right now that will change your life forever if you apply it? Before I get into this next step, if I tell you this one thing, you probably won't do it, though. You probably won't do it. You probably won't do it. But if you do it, you're going to become aware of some things, and you're going to actually start taking accountability. Go look at your screen time on your phone. If you got to, I don't know how to do it on an Android or a Samsung or something like that, but I know how to do it on an iOS. Go take a look at your screen time on your phone and see exactly how much time you spend consuming certain things. Because what entertains you trains you. Right? And your phone may be tricking you to believe something's difficult when it really isn't. Everything may be around you, may be tricking you to make you think that something is extremely difficult when it's not. Because you could either choose the hard of eating right now, or you can choose the hard of being on medication later. Choose your hard. What's really difficult? Difficult is really just the state of mind of saying, I need a skill to accomplish this thing. Well, you don't get the skill and then accomplish the thing. Life is not like school, right? Right? School is where you learn the lesson and then you take the test. But in life, you take the test and then you learn the lesson. I'll pause on that for a second. I said that school is where you learn the lesson, then you take the test. But life is when you take the test and you learn the lesson. But what if you do get the lesson before you get to take the test? What if God does drop some awareness and some knowledge and some wisdom into your life for you to make the right decision? Because you know that if I keep eating this type of food, I'm going to end up with, some type of disease. If I continue to drink and smoke, then I'm going to end up, getting cancer. If I continue to have these negative thoughts, then I'm going to continue to have anxiety. What if you have the awareness? Whose fault is it now if you're still having anxiety? Whose fault is it now that your life doesn't look the way that you want it to look? Now that you know, it's up to you whether you determine whether you're going to grow. Because to whom much is given, much is required, right? So if you want a lot, then you got to do a lot. If you want a healthy life, then you have to do the things that are going to create a healthy life. And you got to trick your brain. When it's saying, hey, you know what? I don't feel good right now. I feel like I'm in a little bit of pain, so I don't want to work out again today. Okay, well where's that going to leave you, right? Where's that going to put you? It's going to put you in a place to where you're going to start running from the difficult thing. And when you start running from one difficult thing, hey, maybe today you made a mistake because you ran from one difficult thing. But if you run from two difficult things, you're starting to create a habit of running away from things when it becomes difficult. So when it comes uncomfortable, when something becomes uncomfortable, you automatically want to go into comfortable. But once we can actually say, what if being more uncomfortable creates a life that is comfortable instead of just the feeling of it? That's a fact. So anyway, I believe that now I've talked enough about the O on how to turn an obstacle into an opportunity. Ask yourself better questions, right? So ask yourself better questions when it comes to obstacles into opportunities, because you have the choice today to actually make a decision on what is hard and what hard to choose. And one day you will not get that choice. So the next thing is going to be me, right? Me. It's the M. I said go home. The framework is home. The framework is home. How to go home. How to connect yourself to the truth, right? And be able to understand that difficult is just something that you're labeling, right? And so, again, the H stands for get out of your head. The O stands for the obstacles into opportunities. And then the M is going to stand for me, ownership and action. I like to say if God put it on your heart, then God's going to play a part, but you got to start. You got to start. You can't continue to pray for God to open and close doors for you if you're not willing to take your hand off the door handle. I said it before. And what's important in this moment is to know that if you give the external things in your life the weight of saying these are the reasons and the circumstances are what's keeping me from doing something, then you're never actually going to have full control over your life. If you continuously look around and say the external factors, the contributing factors in my life are actually causing my life to be a certain way, then you'll never really realize that you are the determining factor. You'll never actually realize that you're the solution. Because if you blame something else or someone else for having the problem, then you're going to tie the solution with someone else or something else. You're going to be running around looking for something new instead of actually looking at you. There's nothing else you need to do. There's not another program or course you need to run to. You just need to go to the mirror and look at you. When I stopped looking out the window and started looking in the mirror, that's when everything got clear. Everything got clear. So understand that the level of accountability that you take with your life is going to determine exactly how far you end up going. It won't be anybody else that's going to help you get there. I mean, Earl Nightingale said it, right? And a lot of people think it's a controversial statement. I think I mentioned in the last video or two, is that Earl Nightingale said, what did he say? How did he say this? He said that everybody is self-made, but only the successful admit it. Now, I know we're not all self-made, right? They say it takes a village to raise somebody. Maybe you have some, family members, relationships, business partners, mentors, whatever you have in your life. There's always going to be, you might be, a pastor at the church, whomever, right? There's always going to be people that play a role in helping you get where you are. You always have to have a team to build something great. I mean, nowadays you can get a whole bunch of Mac Minis and build some AI agents and so forth. But I'm just saying, so you can't actually accomplish some of the greatest things in the world alone. But, and I say that strongly, but you will be the determining factor whether you took action or not. So when Earl Nightingale said everybody is self-made, but only the successful admit it, he's saying that the people that are not successful are not willing to blame themselves. They're not willing to look in the mirror and say that I'm not, determined by my actions. I'm determined by my circumstances. But again, you don't have a circumstance problem. You have a perspective problem. And it all starts with you. We good? We clear? Rockets in the chat if y'all are getting any value. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. That way you'll get notified when we're on here again. I don't know if any of you guys deal with this. You know, if you're dealing with a difficult thing, hard conversation, you know, leaving a job that you don't want to work at anymore, starting that vision that's in your mind. You know, a lot of the times when we start to actually take action, we tend to start thinking about and kind of going back to the O in the framework, which is like, what if this doesn't work? What if I look stupid? What if, you know, man, this happens or that happens? Well, here's the thing. You're not going to look stupid, but you are going to make some mistakes. The only person that looks stupid is the person that's still talking about doing it. Let that sit for a minute. You know, I heard Alex Hormozy say something the other day. He was like, so people just are afraid to look stupid for a long time. I don't like that. I don't think anybody looks stupid. I think we may make mistakes, but you don't look stupid. The only person that looks stupid that's not doing anything at all, that's still talking about it. Like, that's still just saying, hey, I'm going to do this. I'm about to do that. I'm getting ready to launch this thing. Like, there's no need to even talk about it. Just do it. And then check the film tape. Action brings clarity. Not clarity brings action. Stop going to people and asking them exactly what they think about what you're doing, because now their opinion may cause you to not take action. And the fastest way to kill a big dream is to share it with a small mind. So what are we doing? What are we doing? Like keep your vision to yourself and take action. Now, if you need accountability, then go ahead and tell some other people about it. But you got to be strong enough and have you got to be strong enough to be able to know that, like, when you start doing that, regardless of who you talk to, it's not going to stop you from taking action. Because again, if God put it on your heart, then God's going to play a part, but you must start. Faith without works is dead, and you can't replace laziness with prayer. You must take action. You must take action, or else nothing will happen. So, again, we got to get out of our head. We got to change the questions that we ask ourselves. Then we have to go ahead and be able to focus on taking action. It all starts with me, the M in me, right? And you got to make a decision too. Like a lot of us will tend to like, the reason why we don't take action, I want to add this because I think it's important. You know, it's like I could tell you to take action all day, but what is the reason why we don't take action? It's because we don't make a decision. And what's interesting is that, like, there was a scientific study done. Let me see if I have this here. There was a scientific study done. It was called Strong Effects on Simple Plans. It was a while ago. It was about 20 years ago. But it was by Dr. Peter Gollwitzer at NYU. And the data, deciding exactly when and where you start increases your success rate from 35% to 91%. Man, that's powerful. That's powerful. Deciding, like cutting yourself off from the overthinking, but deciding when and where you're going to start increases your success rate from 35% to 91%. So how do you trick your brain? Well, you go ahead and write down the vision and make it plain. That's what it says in the Bible, right? So how do you trick your brain? You set your start date and time and make it plain. And then what if you don't start? I think that's a big thing too, right? It's like, what if you don't start? I was hoping this video wasn't going to be that long today, but I'm always going to run out of time before we run out of value. But what if you don't start? Are you holding yourself accountable? Like, if you don't do something by a certain time, what are the consequences that you're giving yourself? Do you have any consequences that you're giving yourself? I mean, seriously, right? What consequences are you actually giving yourself if you don't get the thing done that you said that you were going to get done? It's crazy to me. Like, too many times will we do something and then we'll actually not give ourselves a consequence for not doing the thing that we said that we were going to do. So then what happens? Then we create a habit of being able to be in a position of where we can actually escape the thing that's difficult. If you don't have a consequence tied to your actions and you don't take action, then you're going to create a new habit of not taking action when it becomes difficult. So the only way that you can trick your brain to do what's difficult is to stop giving yourself the opportunity to have an exit plan. Like you just can't have an exit plan. Like, you can't have an exit plan. If you have an exit plan, right? So here's the thing, right? When you decide to go do something, then things feel a little difficult. You end up with a feeling that arises, and that feeling sometimes will tell you to quit. And if you feel like quitting is going to be an option, then it will become an option. But you have to kind of put yourself in a position to where you're tethered to the future. What does tether mean? Like, to tie yourself to the future. You have to tie yourself to the future. Because if you don't like tie yourself to the future, it's almost like getting on a boat that you don't want to get on. Like, if you don't want to get on the boat, well, you're going to ask yourself before, well, what happens if something goes wrong and I want to get off? Well, you're creating an exit plan, which is already creating something in your mind that says that I have an option of quitting when it gets difficult. And if you align yourself and tether yourself to the future and put yourself in a situation where you can't go back, then you have no chance to actually not become who you want to become. Another study was done where it was called Internal versus External Control on Reinforcement by Dr. Julian Rotter at the University of Connecticut. An internal locus of control lowers cortisol responses by you viewing difficulties as challenges to be mastered. So it's kind of like the reframing, but in this moment, when you start looking at the difficulties as something that you have to go through and you don't know what's going to happen on the other side, if you can reframe that to, this is something that's arising in my life that I get to accomplish. And it's almost like, this is amazing. I got a challenge in front of me, which is going to cause me to grow and learn and be able to create a solution. Then I can become somebody actually greater on the other side of this. Like a challenge is not an obstacle. Like, a challenge is an opportunity. So once we do that, we hold ourselves accountable, obviously, to what happens if we don't do it, right? Then we have the last step, which is the E. And the E stands for environment. So when I say go home, I mean the H stands for your head. Get out of your head. The O is going to stand for opportunity. The M is going to stand for me. And the E is going to stand for environment. So we have to get out of our head. We have to reframe so we can see this opportunity. We have to focus on me. We have to focus on myself, ourself, to be able to take the first action step and tie ourselves to the future with no possibility for turning back. And if we do not accomplish what we said we're going to do, there has to be a consequence tied to it. And then E, environment. This is where you actually put yourself in an environment with other people that have accomplished the thing that you want to accomplish. And this will allow you to have a little bit more hope. Now, it's one thing to have faith, but there's also a thing called hope. And hope is pretty much like just knowing that, hey, I'm going to get through this thing, and I can see that there's evidence that I will, right? And so when we're focused on the hope segment of this, we can then see that the environment that we're actually walking into is there to help us actually push us, celebrate us, nurture us, and do those types of things. So it's like too many of us will actually see an environment that we feel may help us because we feel like we have a growth mindset. But if we haven't gotten out of our head and actually reframed and shifted a little bit of our belief system and took some action steps on our own, when we get into that environment, we're not going to really be able to learn by doing. And there's a lot of misconception in business development and personal development is that people feel like once they have the information, that's going to actually change their situation. But people don't need more information, they need more implementation. So when we read something, I always like to say we're either focused on our self-development or we're focused on our shelf development. And the difference between the two is going to determine whether the things that we read, we just put on the bookshelf or we apply them to actually work on our business. And so when we think about the environment that we put ourselves in, we put ourselves around other people that aren't focused on shelf development. They're focused on self-development. They're focused on their own personal growth. And through that, this will help us stay accountable. Like we may have taken the first step and have faith that God's going to help us with the rest of them, but we need to be around other people that are also doing the same thing. Because you can't really grow when you learn something, but then you go back to the old life to share that information, or you go back to the old environments, or you go back around people that have a different mindset. Then you're just going to be struggling to convince other people to believe what it is that you believe. And you may not feel like that's going to happen, but it definitely will, because people are going to start asking you the wrong questions. You may have asked yourself the right questions to actually push yourself in a place to finally take action and start to see results. But when you come back to some of these old environments, they're still talking the same way they were when you left. They're still doing things the same way when you actually had the confidence and the courage to actually take the first step to leave, because you can't change your environment. You can only change how long you stay there. I'll say that again. You can't change your environment. You can only change how long you stay in that environment. So when you leave the environment and you go into a new place where there are new people doing new things, and you have taken the action steps, you have focused on shifting your belief system, and you have focused on, getting out of your head when you're actually faced with these challenges, and understand that the challenge is an opportunity for you to overcome something, to become something greater, you start to say, why is this difficult? Only because I'm labeling that it is. I haven't even done it yet, so how do I know if it is difficult? And on the other side of doing this difficult thing, I'm actually going to become greater, and I'm actually going to get closer to the thing that I want to get to. It's like, a lot of us think that, well, we want certainty, right? We want to know that if I take the next step, I'm going to actually get to where I want to go. Well, the only thing that's certain is if you don't take the next step, you'll never get there. Because the next step may not get you there. Like, a newsflash, I'm sorry to tell you guys that, but like the next step that you take may not get you exactly where you want to go. But if you don't take that next step, you'll never get there at all. And too many of us want to be certain that the next step that we do is actually going to, if I do this difficult thing, then I want this reward on the other side. But sometimes God has to allow you to work for it. Sometimes you have to become the person that's going to actually be able to stay there when you get there. Because if you get things too early, you're not going to be able to be a person that's going to even have the strength and the mindset to stay there. Sometimes you got to do something long enough, and God's going to give it to you when he feels like you're strong enough. Like sometimes you have to do the same thing, the mundane, the boring, the difficult thing every single day long enough. So then when God feels that it's time, he'll say, all right, cool, you're strong enough. Right? So stay planted. So get into the environment and stay in the environment, right? When you get into the new environment and you start to feel a little uncomfortable, that's good. That's great. But when you go back to comfort, good luck with that. Nothing grows in the comfort zone. I mean, you literally are reading the Bible and doing the opposite. You're reading the books and doing the opposite. You're buying the courses and doing the opposite. You're doing everything to say that what I want to do is grow. You get the information, but then you run in the wrong direction. If you guys are getting any value from this at all today, please drop some rockets in the chat. We'd love to know that you guys are getting some value. I think what's really important in this video is the factor of understanding that you don't lack access to anything. You only lack awareness of the access that you already have. But sometimes you won't see the access until you take the first 3 steps, until you get out of your head, you ask yourself better questions, and then you take the first action step. Then you're able to be in an environment to where you start to see the real resources that are available to you. because who you are right now may not be able to see the actual resources that you have around you because you're so stuck to the problem. You're allowing yourself to be consumed by things that you know are not helpful for you. They're more hurtful than anything. So the only way that you're going to trick your brain to be able to do the difficult thing is to stop thinking about the thing and start thinking about what happens after I do the thing. What will my life look like in the solution? What's more painful, to go through this process to get to the solution or to avoid this process and stay with the problem? I mean, think about that, right? That's so powerful. Like, is it more, what's more difficult? What is difficult? We need to trick our brain to say that difficult is not dealing with the process. Difficult is running from the process and having to hold on to the problem. We think that the difficult conversation is going to be worse than staying in this situation. Man, we think that dealing with this difficult conversation is going to be heavier than staying in this horrible situation. Oh, man. Everything is temporary. Everything is temporary. I'm going to leave you guys with this. Everything is temporary. So again, get out of your head, ask yourselves better questions, take the first action step, and then change your environment. But don't go back to the old one. And just realize that everything is temporary. How do you trick your brain to do difficult things? You start actually looking at difficult through a different lens. I want to show you something. I don't have a ruler here, but I have this. This is sad to hold up, but it is what it is. So it's a lanyard that I have, right? Tampa Bay Buccaneers lanyard, yeah. So everybody you got something to say about it? Fine. Go ahead and say something about it. But I'm going to actually, this will work really good. Here, let me take this off really fast here. I'm going to show you something here. I want this to be like a little analogy for you, because I want you to think about this, right? Man, this is so powerful. So we have this here, right? Which is a lanyard. I want you to think about this lanyard as looking at life, right? And too many of us are looking at this thinking that what's difficult right now is going to be the situation that we need to deal with, or the action step that we need to take, or the process that we have to go through to get what it is that we want. But what if I told you that everything is so temporary, and the thing that you're focused on right now is this? Because here's dealing with the situation. This part. This is dealing with the situation. This is the hard, difficult part of dealing with the situation. Taking the first action step. Being able to look yourself in the mirror and say, let me ask myself some different questions. Let me get out of my head. Let me ask myself some different questions. And then let me go ahead and take the first action step. So when you take that first action step, you think that the discomfort is going to be this long. You think that the difficulty is going to be this long. But the difficulty is just this. Here's everything you get to have after you deal with what's difficult. So what is really difficult? And what are you really focused on? Adjust your focus. Because instead of thinking that all of this is going to be difficult, that's not the case. Here's what's difficult. Dealing with it. Here's what's difficult. Dealing with it. That's gone. Now you get to live in the reward of dealing with what you said was difficult. So what's more difficult? Doing it and getting exactly where you need to go to become who you're supposed to become? Or just sitting in your head all day, wasting time all day, procrastinating all day? You know, I like to say that procrastination is the arrogant assumption that God's going to give you another chance tomorrow with what he gave you the chance to do it today. And you could use this analogy for another thing. Let's just say this, right? You focused on what you're doing in life right now. And if you're practicing fear because you're living here, this is the world right now where we live. This is eternity. If you're practicing fear, you're practicing atheism, because it's the complete opposite of what the Bible teaches us. So stop focusing on this little section, thinking that it's the whole thing. Take the first step. If God put it on your heart, then God's going to play a part, but you got to start. Well, I pray that this video blesses you. I pray that this video gives you some understanding on knowing that things are not difficult. It's just that you're labeling them difficult. And when you label something and you give something a definition, then you're actually saying that's what it is. I always like to see what you see is what you get. And nothing is anything until you call it something. If you follow the 4 steps, getting out of your head, changing the questions that you're asking yourself, taking action and accountability and ownership, and then you get in a new environment, everything will change for you. The real question is are you going to do it? That's the real question. Will you do it? Will you do what you know you need to do? Because you know that you want to overcome and achieve something. But the real question will be, are you willing to do it? Well, I pray that this video gives you some hope to understand that you don't need a new life. You just need a new lens. And yeah, that's all I got for you today. So with that being said, continue to take ownership, continue to take action, and eventually you're going to take off. But just understand, you do not have a circumstance problem. You have a perspective problem. And these hills and valleys that you're going through right now, they're not places. They're perspectives. So until then, hopefully I'll see you next week on another episode of the Perspective Pause. Y'all have a blessed day. I'll see you later. Peace.